The looming shutdown of the United States federal government is now only 11 days away, thanks solely to the chaos in the House Republican Conference and the weakness and incompetence of its leadership. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so we've done some videos on this before. I'm afraid we're going to have to continue to do it because it's an ongoing, important political story. But once again, the chaos of the Republican Party is heading the United States straight for a government shutdown. This is not the first time that the Republican Party has led us here. I doubt it will be the last, but it is unique in the sense that for the first time, and God knows how long, the GOP doesn't seem to have a coherent strategy, even as they work in bad faith to lead us into a shutdown. Now, as a refresher, a government shutdown is not quite as bad as the debt ceiling crisis that we potentially faced several months ago. Okay, it wouldn't make us default on our loans or anything like that, but it would essentially grind the gears of the federal government to a halt. And before some of you libertarians out there go, hell yes, actually know that would have enormous consequences for the American people. It would affect, again, the certification and licensure of Social Security, things like that. It would cause flight delays across the country due to reductions in air traffic controllers. It would destroy national parks because of lack of upkeep. Food safety inspections, at least in 2019 when we faced the last threat of government shutdown, were delayed, causing consequences for the food we eat. Situations, reduction, furloughs in the National Labor Relations Board, at the Department of Education, reviews of grant applications and rewarding the funds would stop, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission would not conduct inspections, decommissioning activities for nuclear reactors, or training. Sounds like a big deal, okay? Government shutdown, not good. And even Secretary of the Treasury Janet Yellen has warned that even though right now the economy is in a good place, a government shutdown could potentially have wider economic considerations, especially when you consider that faith in the U.S. government and our economy was reduced thanks to Republican brinkmanship during the debt ceiling crisis. Everyone in the world is like, man, is the United States really a reliable fiscal partner given the chaos within the Republican Party? So this isn't good for anybody. I want to play a quick clip here of Jim McGovern, a Democrat, calling this out in very explicit terms. He gets feisty.
I mean, it is pathetic. As the Republican whip said, the patients are running the hospital around here. The gentleman from Oklahoma said this is about a negotiation. My Republican friends can't even negotiate with themselves. And we have 11 days to go before there is a shutdown. And they are going in the wrong direction. It is going to become more and more difficult to get to an agreement. So enough. I mean, enough. The Republican leadership of this House is incompetent. I mean, they're so incompetent it takes my breath away. They're letting the clowns run the circus. It is time the Speaker of the House develop a spine and stand up to the most extreme elements on the Republican side and actually sit down and negotiate an agreement that deals with the reality of our government. The Republicans only control barely just one branch of our government. The House. The Senate's under Democratic control. The White House is run by a Democrat. You're going to have to negotiate. And you're moving in the wrong direction. Time is running out. Stop this nonsense. Get serious.
Well said, Representative McGovern. He's right. What the Republican Party is doing is the same thing that they've done in previous government shutdowns under the Obama administration, under the Clinton administration, and now here too, in which they control one chamber, perhaps two, but in this case one, of the House of Representatives, one chamber of the legislature, and they're basically trying to dictate terms to a Democratic Senate or a Democratic president rather than negotiate. That's a problem. And the chaos in the Republican conference can't be overstated. Kevin McCarthy is not happy with the situation whatsoever because the MAGA Freedom Caucus, his far-right flank, people like Paul Gosar, Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, et cetera, and so forth, they're not interested in responsibly governing or anything like that, and they're wanting a series of demands. This sort of spending cut, this sort of bill, this impeachment, a full impeachment into President Biden, all the things. Whereas Kevin McCarthy made a commitment during the debt ceiling negotiation in terms of budget cuts and keeping certain budget parameters heading into the next budget allocation or appropriation. So he's going back essentially on his word that he gave to President Biden, which also calls into question if that's the case, then perhaps President Biden should revisit his own terms, like the student loan moratorium, for example. He agreed with Kevin McCarthy as part of the negotiations. Okay, well, in exchange for this, we will renew student loan payments. Maybe President Biden should reconsider that term too. Well, if you're not going to hold up your end of the bargain, why should I hold up my end? Food for thought. But anyway, yeah, so the reporting is pretty clear. MAGA Republicans can't agree on demands for McCarthy, so there's, schismatic fighting within the Freedom Caucus and then between the Freedom Caucus and the rest of the Republican Party. House Democrats are in unanimity, and they're urging Kevin McCarthy and some moderate Republicans, hey, work with us, negotiate with us to help fund the government. Because again, as we've discussed, Democrats and Republicans in the Senate, the other chamber, are pretty much in unanimity for the most part. They've been able to get their crap together and work under the framework negotiated between President Biden and Kevin McCarthy during the debt ceiling crisis. It's House Republicans and House Republicans alone holding this up. Now, as a Washington Post op-ed pointed out, that a good deal already exists to avert the government shutdown, and that was the deal negotiated by McCarthy and Biden. But again, as we've discussed, in terms of the budget cuts that various Republicans are wanting to impose as deal breakers, that would require him to break his word, his agreement with the president. The last thing I want to do here is play this quick clip. This is Kevin McCarthy a day or so ago. This is what he has to say on the situation on his own members who don't seem to be cooperating with him.
It's a good thing I love a challenge, because every day is going to be a challenge. We got a long week. We're not September 30th yet, but the one thing I'll tell everybody, I've never seen anybody win a shutdown. You only put the power in the hands of the administration. If you want to secure the border, pass Homeland. If you want to make America strong and secure, you pass the DOD appropriations bill. If you're not willing to pass appropriation bills, and you're not willing to pass a continuing resolution to allow you to pass the rest of appropriation bills, and you don't want an omnibus, I don't quite know what you want. So, we just have to get together, figure it out, and move forward.
Sounds like what Kevin McCarthy is slowly coming to understand is that many members of his own caucus really don't want to govern. He doesn't know what they want. And so, to him, I've got this.
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
And that, my friends, is the Republican Party, and in particular, the MAGA Freedom Caucus in a nutshell. They don't want anything logical. They don't want to responsibly govern. They want culture war fights. They want symbolic throwdowns. They want to throw fits. They want to virtue signal effectively for their cult leader, Donald Trump. That's all they care about. And that's what Kevin McCarthy is running into now. I have no sympathy for him. He helped create this situation, but his inability to stand up to his own party and his inability to manage them is going to have quite a few disastrous consequences for the American people.